Hey seniors, well, congratulations, you have done it. You have made it to the end of high school, of the end of your senior year, and fortunately the end of e-learning. So I've been thinking for a long time what I want to do for your last day, because I kind of have a thing about endings where, I don't know, I'm sentimental that way, where I think they should be somehow special or something like that. So I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do today with you. And I was reading this book, and my dad actually got me for this. There's a comedian, his name is Dimitri Martin. I think he has a few specials on Netflix still if you want to check him out. And he just does funny drawings, and some of them are funny, and some of them are sad, and some of them I think are meaningful. And I was thinking about how can I best teach with these? What larger truths do these images give? And I think that there's one that's rather funny that I think applies to you. Here it is. I know that your life might feel like this right now, that you are leaving high school and entering post-high school life under very uncertain circumstances, that things are very weird and very strange right now, so you are just tied to the rocket ship and it's taken off, and who knows where you'll end up, or at least that might be how you feel. So I've been thinking about this question really for years, for a long time, but I think it's especially pertinent now, is what gives us hope for the future then? If the future is very uncertain and we don't know what it's going to look like, and you're leaving high school now, what should we be hopeful for? And maybe more broadly, what is hope? So that's a question that I've been grappling with, and I actually have been reading this book during quarantine. It's called Hope Dies Last, and it's by Studs Terkel, who's a very famous Chicago historian. That he's famous for going around and he does interviews, he does oral histories. And he wrote this whole book in the early 2000s about hope. And I think that he offers some good definitions. So here's an oral history that I just want to read a few sentences out of. And it's two brothers, and one of them is a priest, and he just defines what hope means to him. So he says, "Hope is a thing with feathers." That's what Emily Dickinson says. "Hope is the people I see by day, parents really struggling to get their kids raised and through school, who take on 2 or 3 jobs to do that. Hope is people in my parish going through terminal illnesses, but staying above it, not letting it dominate them. Hope is the people who minister to them. Hope is people working in the peace movement to keep us out of the war in Iraq, or working to provide affordable housing. Hope has a human face. Sure, I'm worried, but as long as we have people who are speaking out loud and clear and holding our leaders accountable, I'm hopeful. Hope dies last." So if you're anything like me, especially that last sentence and the title of the book, I really find that beautiful, of hope dying last. That, when you have nothing else, at least most people have hope, or at least you would hope that they do. So the next question, I think, is, well, what gives us hope? And the man in that book kind of says what exactly gives him hope. But I want to share with you one of my personal heroes is Robert Kennedy, the brother of John F. Kennedy. And he has a whole complicated life that I won't bore you with the details with, but he was Attorney General when his brother was president, then his brother was shot and killed. Then eventually Robert Kennedy ran for Senate, and he ran for president then in 1968 until he himself was then shot and killed. But before he died, he gave this speech, and I want to give you just a few minutes because what he says really encapsulates what I think and what brings me hope. So take a listen to him.
"Our answer is the world's hope. It is to rely on youth. The cruelties and the obstacles of this swiftly changing planet will not yield to obsolete dogmas and outworn slogans. It cannot be moved by those who cling to a present which is already dying, who prefer the illusion of security to the excitement and danger which comes with even the most peaceful progress. This world demands the qualities of youth, not a time of life, but a state of mind, a temper of the will, a quality of the imagination, a predominance of courage over timidity, of the appetite for adventure over the life of ease. It is a revolutionary world that we all live in. And thus, as I have said, in Latin America and in Asia and in Europe and in my own country, the United States, it is the young people who must take the lead. Thus you and your young compatriots everywhere have had thrust upon you a greater burden of responsibility than any generation that has ever lived. There is, said an Italian philosopher, nothing more difficult to take in hand more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. Yet this is the measure of the task of your generation, and the road is strewn with many dangers. First is the danger of futility, the belief there is nothing one man or one woman can do against the enormous array of the world's ills, against misery, against ignorance, or injustice and violence. Yet many of the world's great movements of thought and action have flowed from the work of a single man. A young monk began the Protestant Reformation. A young general extended an empire from Macedonia to the borders of the earth. And a young woman reclaimed the territory of France. It was a young Italian explorer who discovered the New World, and 32-year-old Thomas Jefferson, who proclaimed that all men are created equal. Give me a place to stand, said Archimedes, and I will move the world. These men move the world, and so can we all. Few will have the greatness to bend history, but each of us can work to change a small portion of the event, and in the total, all of these acts will be written in the history of this generation. Thousands of Peace Corps volunteers are making a difference in the isolated villages and the city slums of dozens of countries. Thousands of unknown men and women in Europe resisted the occupation of the Nazis, and many died, but all added to the ultimate strength and freedom of their countries. It is from numberless diverse acts of courage such as these that the belief that human history is thus shaped. Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance.
So besides Robert Kennedy just having that great accent that when he says danger, it comes out as danger, but what he says really encapsulates what I believe. At the very beginning of the clip that I show you, he says, our answer is the world's hope is to rely on the youth. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I'm an old man who's, just feeling great about the 18-year-olds that are going out into the world, but really the short amount of time that we have spent together has given me hope. The quarantine check-ins, the reflections that you've shown to me have given me a lot of hope. Seeing what you're doing and seeing the sense of humor that you still have, that gives me hope. Seeing the sense of determination and pride that you have, that a lot of you are still going to work, that gives me hope. Seeing so many of you stay committed and stay dedicated to school when you have everything else that you could be worrying about, that gives me hope. And this speech that Robert Kennedy gives is called the Ripples of Hope speech. And this is why I absolutely love it, because this is something that I believe totally down to my core, is that one person can make a difference and every person should try. And that's why I chose to end the clip with this quote here, that each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring those ripples build a current, which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. I urge you to have hope that things can change and that things will change, because your just tiny ripple of hope, when it matches with someone else's tiny ripple of hope, has immense power. If I can leave you with any one thought, it is this phrase that has gotten me through so much, is that to not let what is get in the way of what should be. But I know that it can be hard to feel that way right now, especially as you're leaving the things that are familiar to you and as you're leaving under these strange circumstances. In fact, my very favorite picture from, again, this book here comes almost at the very end, and I'll put a picture of it on the screen right here. That you have probably spent a lot of time in Burbank or in Stickney, that you've probably spent a lot of time at Revis. Probably some of you have been there way later than you have ever wanted to be. That you formed relationships with friends and teachers and coaches and sponsors and administrators. And now you kind of just have to leave, and you have to leave very unceremoniously, it feels like. You didn't get the last few weeks enjoying it the way that you were supposed to. So you might feel like you were building up this tree, and now the tree has just been cut down. And now it means that you have to start again. But you will. I love this picture, and this picture has gotten me through some hard times, because sometimes things are going to suck and they're going to get cut down, but then a new tree starts growing. In this time, you have shown immense resiliency, still going to work, still completing your schoolwork, still taking care of who you are as a person. I thank you for the absolute honor that it has been to be part of your senior year, your high school experience, and your lives. You are strong, you have kicked a lot of ass, and you have only just begun.